You did the research, you watched the videos, you read the articles, and by the end of it, you had a short list. Panama, Portugal, Thailand, maybe Malaysia. The publications told you these had the easiest retirement visas in the world. Low income requirements, fast processing, generous benefits. So you started planning. Some of you started packing. Here's what nobody told you while you were doing that research. Panama's Pensionado visa, ranked easiest by International Living for 6 consecutive years, now requires you to navigate a real estate or government bond deposit requirement that didn't exist 3 years ago, in a country where rental costs have risen 50% since the data those rankings were built on. Thailand's long-term resident visa has had 3 significant rule changes in the last 18 months alone. Portugal's D7 passive income visa, held up everywhere as the gold standard for simplicity, is currently backlogged at 14 months or more at several consulates, meaning you could apply today and not receive an answer until late 2027. And almost none of the publications covering these programs are updating their rankings to reflect any of it, because rankings that say it's complicated now don't get the same clicks as rankings that say, here are the 5 easiest. The visa is not a footnote. The visa is the foundation. Get it wrong and the whole thing collapses. You're either illegal, stranded, or burning through savings while you wait for paperwork to move. We went through 8 of the most frequently recommended retirement visa programs in the world, pulled their current requirements, cross-referenced them against expat legal forums, immigration attorney blogs, and U.S. Embassy advisories from the last 6 months, and built an honest picture of where each one actually stands in 2026. Not where it stood in 2022. Now, we're ranking them worst to best, by real ease, not marketed ease. Stay until number 1, because it's the program almost nobody recommends first, and it is the most stable, lowest threshold, most retiree-tested program running anywhere on Earth right now. Here's the framework we used, because you should be able to poke holes in it. We graded each visa program on 5 factors. First, income threshold in real 2026 dollars. What you actually need to qualify, not the headline number from a 2021 article. Second, processing time stability. How long is the current wait, and has that wait been consistent, or is it bouncing around? Third, program stability. Has the program changed its rules, income requirements, or deposit conditions in the last 3 years, and in which direction? Fourth, what you actually get: residency rights, renewal requirements, travel restrictions, tax implications. And fifth, real cost of compliance, lawyer fees, required deposits, health insurance mandates, document apostille costs, the stuff that never appears in the headline income requirement but adds up fast. The programs that rank highest are the ones scoring well across all 5. A low income threshold means nothing if the processing time is 14 months and the rules keep changing. A fast processing time means nothing if the real cost of qualifying is 3 times the headline number. Let's get into it. Thailand has been on every retirement shortlist for 20 years, and for good reason. The country is beautiful, the cost of living is low, the food is extraordinary, And the healthcare in Bangkok and Chiang Mai is genuinely world-class at a fraction of Western prices. None of that is in dispute. The visa situation, however, is a different story entirely, and it's the story that almost nobody is telling you straight. Thailand introduced the Long-Term Resident Visa, the LTR, in 2022 as a premium replacement for the older retirement visa framework. On paper, it's attractive. A 10-year renewable visa, potential tax exemptions on foreign-sourced income, fast-track services at immigration. But here's what's happened since launch. The income requirement has been adjusted. The health insurance mandate has been revised. The specific documentation required from U.S. pension holders has changed. And the list of approved countries whose government pension income qualifies for simplified processing has been updated more than once. 3 rule changes in 18 months is not a stable program. That's a program still figuring out what it is. The older Thailand retirement visa, the non-immigrant OA, is still available and still used by thousands of expats, but it requires annual renewal and a mandatory health insurance policy from a Thai insurer, which adds $500 to $1,500 a year in costs that rarely appear in the, quote, minimum income requirement headline. The standard qualifying threshold sits at roughly 65,000 Thai baht per month, about $1,750 at current exchange rates. But add the insurance mandate, the 90-day check-in requirement with immigration, and the annual renewal stress, and you have a visa that takes consistent maintenance. Thailand is not a bad choice. For the right retiree who has done serious research and is working with a local immigration attorney, it can work very well. But as a ranked easy visa, it is not easy. It is manageable. There's a difference, and that difference matters enormously when you're building a life, not planning a vacation. Italy keeps appearing on retirement lists because of obvious reasons. Nobody needs to explain why retiring in Tuscany or Sicily sounds appealing. And Italy does offer a visa specifically for non-EU retirees living on passive income, the Elective Residency visa. The income requirement is relatively modest, roughly 31,000 euros per year for a single applicant, or about $2,600 a month, which sounds achievable until you understand what surrounds it. You must prove that income comes entirely from passive sources: pension, social security, investment returns, no employment, no freelance work of any kind. You need to show you have private health insurance covering you fully in Italy before you even apply. And you need to demonstrate you have accommodations secured, either a lease or property ownership, before the visa is issued, meaning you're committing to housing costs before you have legal permission to be there. The processing happens through Italian consulates in the US, and here is where the real problem lives. The Italian consulate system is notoriously understaffed and inconsistent. Processing times vary between 5 and 12 months depending on which consulate serves your jurisdiction. Some consulates have appointment availability months out before you can even submit your application. If your consulate is New York or Los Angeles, you're competing with the highest volume jurisdictions in the country. And once you arrive, Italy's bureaucratic system for converting your visa to a residence permit, the Permesso di Soggiorno, adds another layer of appointments, paperwork, and waiting periods at your local police prefecture. The process works. People do it. But calling it easy is a marketing decision, not an honest assessment. Italy is number 7 because the outcome is extraordinary and the country is genuinely worth the trouble. But the trouble is real, and anyone who doesn't tell you that is setting you up for a year of paperwork stress you didn't budget for. Malaysia, my second home, MM2H, ran for over 2 decades as one of the most generous and accessible long-term residency programs anywhere in Asia. Tens of thousands of foreigners, including a substantial American contingent, built their lives in Penang and Kuala Lumpur under it. Then 2021 happened. The Malaysian government overhauled MM2H comprehensively that year, and the changes were not minor. The minimum monthly offshore income requirement jumped from roughly $2,500 to $10,000. The required fixed deposit in a Malaysian bank, money you park there and largely cannot touch, increased from approximately $80,000 to $150,000. The program was temporarily suspended during the revision and relaunched with a much higher bar. Since then, further refinements have been made, and the program has become somewhat more accessible than the 2021 peak requirements suggested. Multiple tiers now exist, with the Sarawak and Sabah state-level programs offering meaningfully lower thresholds than the federal program. But the instability itself is the problem. A program that can double its financial requirements overnight is a program that can do it again. Here's why Malaysia still deserves to be in the conversation despite being number 6 on this list. The country underneath the visa is exceptional. Penang's food, healthcare, English language environment, and cost of living remain genuinely extraordinary for retirees who qualify. But if you are working with $1,500 to $2,000 a month and a modest savings base, the MM2H as currently structured may simply not be accessible to you financially, regardless of how good the destination is. Know the current tier requirements before you plan around this one. Use an agent and build a plan B. Greece is increasingly mentioned in retirement content, and the underlying appeal is obvious. Mediterranean climate, stunning geography, EU healthcare infrastructure, and costs that are meaningfully lower than Western Europe. But Greece presents a specific problem that almost no retirement publication addresses cleanly. Greece does not have a dedicated retirement visa for non-EU nationals the way Panama or the Philippines do. What exists instead is the Type D long-stay visa for financially independent persons, essentially a proof of passive income visa, which requires showing approximately €2,000 per month in income and must be renewed annually for the first 2 years before converting to a longer residence permit. The process runs through Greek consulates in the US, which, like Italian consulates, have capacity constraints and inconsistent processing timelines. Greece's Golden Visa program, which offered residency through real estate investment, was one of Europe's most used until the minimum investment threshold jumped to €800,000 in popular areas including Attica, Thessaloniki, and the major islands. For most retirees, that pathway closed. What remains is workable, and Greece is worth serious consideration for the right person. Specifically someone with $2,000 or more a month in documented passive income, patience for annual renewals, and a willingness to navigate consular bureaucracy. But the absence of a purpose-built retirement visa means you're fitting yourself into a category that wasn't specifically designed for you, and that friction shows up in the process. Let's be precise about what Portugal's D7 actually is, because it's been described so many times in so many different ways that the description has drifted from the reality. The D7 is a passive income visa. You prove you have sufficient regular income from outside Portugal, you secure accommodation, you get private health insurance, and you apply. The income threshold is modest, approximately €820 per month, which is Portugal's minimum wage, roughly $890. That threshold is genuinely achievable for most retirees with any Social Security benefit. The visa itself, once issued, gives you 2 years of residency, renewable, with a path to permanent residency after 5 years and citizenship after 6. The tax situation: Portugal offers a non-habitual resident regime, now specifically restructured as IFICI, is more complex than it was before 2024, and retirees should get specific legal advice rather than relying on general articles, but the structure still offers favorable treatment on foreign-sourced income in certain categories. So why is Portugal number 4 and not higher? Because right now, in 2026, getting a D7 visa issued is a serious logistical undertaking. The backlog at Portuguese consulates in the United States, particularly in Boston, Washington, and San Francisco, has reached 14 months or more for initial appointments at some locations. And the process requires an in-person appointment at a consulate before you apply, meaning you can't simply mail in paperwork and wait. You schedule, you wait for your slot, you submit, and then you wait again. For someone with flexibility and patience, this is manageable. For someone trying to make a move within the next 6 to 9 months, it is a genuine obstacle that no ranking is currently flagging at the prominence it deserves. Portugal is real. The D7 is real. The backlog is also real. Plan accordingly and start the process earlier than you think you need to. The Philippines Special Resident Retiree Visa, the SRRV, consistently gets ranked somewhere in the middle of these lists, acknowledged as a decent option but rarely celebrated. That ranking is wrong. The SRRV, administered by the Philippine Retirement Authority, is one of the only retirement visa programs in the world that offers true permanent residency. Not an annual renewal, not a biennial check-in, not a deposit you need to refresh. Once approved, it is indefinite. You get multiple entry privileges, can travel in and out freely, and the government of the Philippines has built a formal, documented system of discounts for SRRV holders on hotels, restaurants, transportation, and medical services that is government-mandated, not voluntary or informal. The income requirements are tiered based on whether you deposit funds in a Philippines bank. For retirees 50 and older with a pension, the deposit requirement is $10,000 and the monthly pension proof required is $800. If you have Social Security income above that threshold, the financial qualification is straightforward. The Philippine Retirement Authority, the PRA, moves at a deliberate pace, which is a diplomatic way of saying plan for the process to take 3 to 6 months and budget patience accordingly. And the Philippines bureaucracy more broadly has a reputation for changing procedural requirements without extensive advance notice. Using an SRRV specialized agent is not optional, it is essential. But here's what puts this at number 3. Stability. The SRRV has been running in its current essential form for decades. It has not had a major overhaul of the kind that blindsided MM2H holders in 2021. The country underneath it, English as an official language, cultural warmth toward Americans, cost of living of $900 to $1,300 a month in Cebu, remains one of the best retirement propositions anywhere. And the government has consistently signaled that attracting foreign retirees is a national economic priority, that political will is a form of visa stability that doesn't show up in income requirement charts. Panama's Pensionado visa is genuinely one of the best designed retirement visa programs ever created. Permanent residency from day one. No income cap. It doesn't matter how much you earn, only that you meet the minimum. No required time in country. No deposit requirement in the Pensionado program itself. Discounts on healthcare, entertainment, restaurants, utilities, and airline tickets ranging from 10% to 50%, legally mandated by Panamanian law. The income requirement, proof of a lifetime pension income of just $1,000 per month, is one of the lowest hard thresholds among established programs globally. All of that is real, and it is still real in 2026. So why is it number 2 and not number 1? A few reasons, and they matter. First, Panama itself has gotten more expensive, and the Pensionado's headline affordability has not kept pace with that reality. The visa discount on restaurants is 25%. But if the restaurant is now twice as expensive as it was when those discounts were established, the math still doesn't work in your favor the way the marketing implies. Second, Panama City's rental costs for expat-accessible neighborhoods have risen 40 to 60% since 2020. A furnished one-bedroom in El Cangrejo or Miraflores that cost $700 in 2021 now runs $1,100 to $1,400. The Pensionado income threshold has not moved. So you can qualify at $1,000 a month and not comfortably live on $1,000 a month in the city most expats choose. The interior, Boquete, David, Pedasi, remains more affordable but carries its own infrastructure and isolation trade-offs. Third, the documentation process for Pensionado, while not complex, requires a police background check, a medical certificate, authenticated proof of pension, and processing through Panama's immigration system, which for Americans means working through the consulate and local Panamanian attorneys. Total real costs, including legal fees and document apostilles, typically run $1,500 to $3,000 before you land. None of this disqualifies the Pensionado. The visa itself remains excellent, permanent, stable, legally generous, low threshold. Panama as a country has real strengths. The warning is specifically about the gap between the marketed version and the 2026 reality on the ground. Walk in with eyes open, and the Pensionado is still a top-tier program. Walk in expecting 2019 Panama, and you will be genuinely surprised by what things cost. Here's the part where we go a different direction than virtually every publication covering this topic. Colombia's Pensionado visa, the Visa de Pensionado, is classified as a migrant visa, which in Colombia's immigration hierarchy means you're not a tourist or a temporary visitor. You are a resident. You can open bank accounts, sign long-term leases, access Colombia's public healthcare system, obtain a Colombian ID card, and after 5 years of continuous residency, apply for permanent residency and begin the citizenship clock if you choose to. The income requirement. A foreign pension, Social Security qualifies explicitly, of 3 times Colombia's national minimum wage. In 2026, that sits at approximately $870 per month. That is the lowest income threshold of any established retirement visa program on this entire list, in a country with a significantly lower cost of living than Panama, with a healthcare system that is internationally regarded, and with cities, Medellin specifically, that have been transforming their infrastructure and safety profile for over a decade. The processing is handled through Colombia's Cancilleria, the foreign ministry, and the timeline for a straightforward application with complete documentation runs 4 to 8 weeks. 4 to 8 weeks. Compare that to Portugal's 14-month consulate queue, Italy's 5 to 12-month wait, or Thailand's annually renewable stress cycle. The documentation required is clear, published, and consistent: proof of pension income, a background check from the FBI or your state, apostilled, a medical certificate, passport photos, and the application fee. Total cost including apostilles and legal assistance from a Colombian immigration attorney, who you should absolutely use, $800 to $1,500. That is the lowest compliance cost of any program on this list. Here is what makes this the most important point of the entire video. Colombia's Pensionado visa has not had a major structural overhaul since its current form was established. The income threshold adjusts annually in line with Colombia's minimum wage increase. Transparent, predictable, and historically modest. The program has not doubled its requirements overnight the way MM2H did. It has not developed a 14-month backlog the way Portugal's D7 has. It has not changed its rules 3 times in 18 months the way Thailand's LTR has. What's the catch? Spanish. Colombia is not an English-language environment outside of tourist zones and upper-tier service sectors in Medellin's Poblado neighborhood. If you want to navigate a government office, negotiate a lease, or handle a medical appointment without a translator, you need at least functional conversational Spanish. This is a real barrier for some retirees and a manageable learning curve for others. Get ahead of it before you move. The second catch: Colombia still carries a Level 2 State Department travel advisory. Exercise increased caution, and certain rural regions and northern departments have active conflict-related concerns. Medellin, the city, is not those regions, but situational awareness is not optional here. It is part of the lifestyle. But the visa itself? Stable income threshold, lowest compliance cost, fastest processing time, genuine resident class status from day one, and a country where $1,200 to $1,600 a month means a life that looks nothing like what $1,200 a month looks like in the United States. The reason Colombia's Pensionado isn't recommended first by most publications is not because it's inferior. It's because Colombia is harder to market without caveats, and caveats don't perform as well in headlines. That's their problem. It shouldn't be yours. Eight programs, one honest framework. Here is the fast version. Thailand's LTR, 3 rule changes in 18 months, not a stable foundation to build on right now. Italy's Elective Residency visa, extraordinary destination, genuinely brutal consulate process, Budget a year and a half minimum. Malaysia's MM2H. The program that doubled its requirements in 2021, still recovering credibility, higher financial bar than most retirees expect. Greece, no dedicated retirement visa, workable annual process, but you're fitting yourself into a category designed for someone else. Portugal's D7, the best designed income threshold program in Europe, currently bottlenecked at 14 months in the consulate queue. Start earlier than you think. Philippines' SRRV, Indefinite Residency, government-mandated discounts, decades of stability, slower processing but a program that has earned its reputation. Panama's Pensionado, generous, permanent, legally excellent, but the country underneath it is more expensive than the rankings reflect. In Colombia's Pensionado, lowest threshold, fastest processing, most stable track record, genuine resident class rights, and a cost of living that makes everything else look like it's trying too hard. Here's what this entire video is really about. A retirement visa is not a checkbox. It's the legal architecture of your life abroad. A program that sounds easy but backlogs for 14 months, or changes its deposit requirements without warning, or gives you annual renewal anxiety for the rest of your retirement, that's not ease. That's a different kind of stress with better weather. The programs that earn trust are the ones that have done exactly what they promised. Consistently, for years. That's a short list. And the one at the top of it is the one most publications skip over because it's in a country that requires a more complicated conversation. Have that conversation, do the research, and if you do visit Colombia, specifically Medellin, visit before you commit, talk to people who are already there, and give yourself the full picture. Every destination rewards that approach. Every destination punishes skipping it. We've already broken down what life actually looks like on the ground in Medellin for a retiree on a fixed income. The neighborhoods, the healthcare walkthrough, the real month-by-month budget, and the security practices that the expat community there actually uses. That's the video right there. It fills in everything we couldn't cover today. And one more thing, the visa is only the beginning. What happens after you land, the bank accounts, the health coverage gaps, the specific bureaucratic sequences nobody tells you about, that's where the real mistakes happen. We've covered those too, because getting the visa right and getting the landing right are two completely different problems. The world is wider than most people let themselves believe. But the door into it is a piece of paper, and the paper matters more than most lists will admit.